Welcome to dry dock number 6 at Thomas C. Shipyard in Homeland, Louisiana, where USS KIDD DD661 is currently undergoing a very well-deserved spa day. It's a little bit of a brisk spa day since it's 43 degrees and a very brisk, I'm going to use that word a lot in this video, brisk 15-mile-an-hour wind with that temperature. This is unusual. This is not comfortable for people this far south. But we're going to talk a little bit today about KIDD's paint scheme. For the past 42 years in Baton Rouge, KIDD has worn a Measure 22 camouflage. A lot of people didn't even think she was camouflaged. But Measure 22 is meant to hide the ship against the horizon and against the ocean. If you're on a ship or on an island on a shore battery looking through the periscope of a submarine, then the haze gray on her sides, all of her vertical structures, would blend in with the blue sky behind her. And if you're flying overhead from an airplane, then all of the deck blue, the ocean blue on her horizontal surfaces, the tops of the guns, the tops of the torpedo tubes, all the decks, that would make her blend in with the ocean around her. Well, this dry docking opportunity presents us with a chance to change things up a little bit and to educate. So we are going to go back, instead of to Measure 22, we're going to step away from her 1945 configuration for a very short time, and we're going to get into a Dazzle Camouflage. Follow me and we'll talk a little bit more about it. The paint scheme that we will be using, the Dazzle Camouflage that we'll be using, is a Measure 32 10D pattern. And what that does, it creates zigzags of black and light gray on her sides so that the zigzags will throw off gunnery and torpedo men who are trying to hit her. It'll make it difficult to figure out exactly what direction she's heading, whether she's coming and going or traversing from port to starboard for those gunners. And you can see here they've already started applying the black to the superstructure. The hull will come last, but they're already putting the black on the superstructure. You can see blue painter's tape up there. They're beginning to mask off, and they will begin putting the silver once they've got everything or not silver, I'm sorry, light gray after everything's masked off. And it's those zigzags that confuse the gunnery, because at a distance you're not sure exactly how far out you're shooting, what direction she's traveling, how fast she's traveling. It will even sometimes disguise it and make a larger ship look smaller because of an angle that will give a false impression of a bow where a bow really isn't there. So that is the whole point and design behind the Dazzle Camouflage. And all that started in World War I, and they came up with some really wild psychedelic dazzles throughout the war. If you Google it, you'll find some that you can't even tell that there's a ship there, but it's like, where's the bridge? Where's the stern? Where's the bow? Because at a certain angle, it just messes you up. KIDD wore Measure 32 10D from December of 1943 through about January of 1944. And then gave way in December 44, January 43 to the Measure 22 that we're all so familiar with. When you're looking at the ship from above, which unfortunately we do not have a sky hook or anything to look down on her, but when they do the decks, all of the decks will even have a pattern to it to throw off any aircraft that are making a dive bombing run on her or just passing over to know what direction she's traveling. You'll have deck blue, and then you'll have a light gray in different areas. And they're angled in a way to kind of make it look like the ship is not traveling straight forward like she is sitting here in the dry dock, but perhaps she's going this way a little bit. It's not meant to hide the ship whatsoever. It's meant to confuse the enemy. Dazzle Camouflage out on the ocean stands out like a sore thumb. Really does. And as I said, if you go on the internet and you Google, you will probably find only about 4 photos of KIDD in Dazzle Camouflage. That's what we found so far. Now, as I said, this is part of an educational effort. This paint job will probably last about 5 years total before the paint begins kind of fading out some, chalking up. UV radiation does a number on paint jobs. You have to have a really, really good paint scheme to last, a paint consistency to last for a good long while. We have in the past painted as often as 2 years, but with the newer paints, we're able to get a little bit longer legs on it and make it last a little bit longer. Of course, the more money you pay for it, the longer your paint goes. So nonprofits have a little bit of trouble with that. So donations always help. So go to USSKIDD.com and press that donate button. But our educational effort will potentially, if successful, will go after about 5 years. We will do away with the Dazzle Camouflage, and we will move to a Measure 21 camouflage, which, if you follow museum ships, is what the battleship Texas is currently in after they got out of dry dock, and they're sitting pierside now doing more work. They changed over to a Measure 21. KIDD had Measure 21 from the moment she was put into commission in 1943 until December of 43 when they changed things up. And the type of camouflage that consists of is all blue, a really dark blue everywhere on her. And that is meant to hide the ship a little bit more, but it's not as effective against a light blue horizon as, say, the haze gray. But for the stormy waters and gray, dark gray skies of the North Atlantic, Measure 21 did pretty good. So we will be talking about each of our camouflages as we go along through this experimental period of about 10 years and teach people about the different types of camouflage. We will explain their pros, we'll explain their cons, and then when it all wraps up, we will go back to Measure 22, which is what is correct for KIDD's configuration. So one of the challenges to this experiment is applying a 1944 camouflage to a physically configured 1945 ship. KIDD is set up for August 14th of 1945. Everything you see on her is exactly what you would have seen if you were standing on the dock looking at her at the end of the war. But the camouflage scheme was designed for what she looked like in 44, and there's several physical differences. The major one is that she used to have torpedo tubes right here between the two stacks. So the ammunition locker that is located just after the forward smokestack would not have even been there. It had been another set of torpedo tubes. This gun platform for the 40 millimeters right in front of the aft stack would have been smaller and moved several feet back to be even, vertically even with the aft stack. Farther back, you've got an ECM mast that wasn't even there in 1944. So a lot of different little physical configurations that are different that make putting this camo scheme onto KIDD in this configuration a little bit of a challenge. So if you go out on the internet, I think there's 4 photos that you can see of her in the 1944 Dazzle. That's all we found so far. And you look at those photos, it's not going to be a one-to-one match. There'll be slight differences just because she isn't set up that way anymore, just like I'm not set up that way anymore. So it's a little bit of a challenge. Now, you look through the historic fleets, and here in the States, a couple of ships that have examples of a Dazzle type camouflage would be the battleship North Carolina in Wilmington, North Carolina, the minesweeper Hazard in Omaha, Nebraska, and the Victory ship American Victory in Tampa, Florida. And there may be others, I'm just not recalling them off the top of my head. Internationally, you go up to Canada, and our good friend from filming Greyhound, HMS Sackville, HMCS Sackville, who portrayed Dickie in Greyhound. She has this wonderfully beautiful Dazzle type camouflage. I call it Dazzle, I may be incorrect there, but it's all sorts of colors of grays and blues that they used in the Western approaches for convoy duty. And Dickie has those, Sackville has those. You go across the pond to Gdynia, I'm probably mangling that city name, but go over to Poland, and our other Greyhound buddy, ORP Błyskawica, a destroyer from World War II, also has a Dazzle type camouflage. Now there's maybe a little more curvy with theirs instead of the straight angular patterns of measure 32 10D. But it is a Dazzle type camouflage, and it's meant not to hide the ship, but to confuse the gunnery. So there are other examples out there if you get on the net and start looking around. We are not going to be the first destroyer or the first destroyer type vessel, or even the first vessel in the museum fleet to have a Dazzle camouflage. In fact, up in Albany, New York, where our first ship superintendent, Tim NesSmith, is now, his ship, USS Slater, is sporting a Dazzle type camouflage. It is still brisk. I'm cold. So I'm gonna wrap this up. What's that?
Let's get off of this wall.
Let's get off of this wall on the side of the dry dock. I agree, because we're elevated and we're exposed. So all types of different camouflages out there. I'm gonna take a page from Ryan Szymanski and say, what's your favorite camouflage that you have? Let us know in the comments section. And for our World of Warships gamers out there, what's the favorite camouflage that World of Warships has released that you can obtain? I don't play the game, but I know that there was a Texas state flag camouflage that they put out for the battleship Texas to raise money, and I thought that was just cool for a digital ship, not for the real ship, mind you. But let us know in the comments what your favorite is. And remember, USS KIDD Veterans Museum is a non-funded state agency that receives no regular state or federal funding. Hit that donate button at USSKIDD.com and help us with projects like this. Let's make sure that we do more than the bare minimum for KIDD. If you enjoy these videos, remember to like, to share, and to subscribe. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.